It's a whole routine you play out. So I go up and he'd look and he'd say, Ram Dass, love everyone. I'd say, yes, Maharaj. He'd say, Jao. So you go back, and that was what you got that day. You'd sit there and love everyone. Boy, I don't love everyone. I should love everyone. The next day he called me up. I got called up in 2 days running. Came up and he leaned way down. He held my beard and he said, Ram Dass. Yeah, this is in Hindi. Ram Dass. Okay. Ram Dass. Ram Dass. Okay. Ram Dass, tell the truth. Yes, Maharaji. Ciao. So I was left that day with what a liar I was. And I decided I'd really tell the truth. Well, he kept doing this. Each day he'd alternate. It was either love everyone or tell the truth. And it took me about 4 or 5 days because of my density before I realized the peculiar predicament I found myself in. That he was giving me 2 contradictory instructions. Because the truth was I didn't love everyone. So I thought about which one shall I do? And I thought, you know, what I always do is I love everyone, even if it's not the truth. I make believe I love them. I love you. Oh, yes, we love each other. Oh, it's okay, I love you. I thought maybe it'd be good to try telling the truth. That'll be refreshing. And as I looked at all my guru brothers, and said, I realized I hated them all. Because they all took me away from him. And I had spilled the beans about him in the first place with Be Here Now, and now I was set with all these unworthy people that were hanging around taking his time. I mean, they were nice people, but I had a good reason. I mean, I just didn't hate them generally. I find reasons for each one. You know, that one was too arrogant, and after a week or two, the truth was I found I didn't like anybody. I even had a sign on my door, do not enter. Okay? Now, at the same time, I was doing another sadhana, another practice, which was that Maharaji said, Ram Dass should not touch money. See, now you can interpret that at many levels. I mean, now I interpret that my mind shouldn't cling or fixate on money. That allows me to have a credit card. But in those days, I took it literally. I shouldn't touch money. So what I did was one of my friends, my guru would be a bag person. They'd carry my money. So we get on the bus, they'd pay my bus fare. See, that worked out fine until I got to hate them all. Now I was in a predicament because I had nobody who I didn't hate, who I hadn't alienated, to be my bag person. Now, from the hotel to the temple is 8 miles. So what I found was I got to the position where there was a day where everybody got on the bus and I had no money to get on the bus, so I had to walk. All the way to the temple, I walked knowing what fun they were all having at the temple. Because they got there in about half hour, and it was going to be about 3 hours for me. It was through the backwoods. And so I was getting more and more angry. I was getting furious. And when I came over looking down on the temple, I saw them all laughing. And they were all hanging around Maharaji. And he has obviously spent much more time with them today than any other day. And I was full of loathing and hatred, and I hated myself and felt so impure to even walk into the temple. And I walked in, and by then, they had just, as I came down, they were all, had their lunches. They were sitting on a porch with leaf plates and their food. And I came in, and they might have been talking about me, I don't know, but one of the people who I especially despised, came up with a leaf plate of food and offered it to me. Okay? And I took it and I threw it at him. Okay? I remember the moment very clearly. I mean, I was oh, ha, 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 ha. And I heard Maharaji from across the courtyard. Ramdas. 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 And I looked over at him, and at that moment, I hated him too, right? And I went across the courtyard pissed. I mean, I was really angry, and I sat down in front of him, and I looked up at him, and I was like, you know, I was so, my bones were aching. You know how that gets when you're really constricted. And he looks at me and says, "Something troubling you?" I said, "Yeah." Yeah, what is it? I said, "I hate all of them." And I said, "And I hate myself." And he said, "Do you love me?" And I looked at him, and it just fell apart. I opened and I started to sob, absolutely sob. I said, "I love you." I was sobbing, and he went and he sent for milk, and he was pouring milk down my throat, and he was patting me on the head. And I went through the whole catharsis and all of that. And then he came up to me, kind of nose to nose. He leaned over on his tucket, and he said, "I told you to love everyone." I said, "But you told me to tell the truth. And the truth is, I don't love everyone." And he leaned forward and he said to me, "Ramdas, love everyone and tell the truth." At that moment, what I experienced were two things. First was I experienced a coffin in front of me, in which who I thought I was somebody whose truth was that they didn't love everyone. And what he was describing to me was who I would be when I finished being who I thought I was. And the other thing was that at that moment I turned and I looked over at my fellow Guru Bai, sisters and brothers, and I saw that at one level I had all this righteous indignation about them, but one little flip of consciousness, and I saw how incredibly beautiful each one of them was. And I loved them so deeply. Jiao. And that was the teaching. And I realized that since that time, for 20 years, I have been learning that teaching. And what I realize is that when I don't feel that love for another human being, I hear Maharaji saying, "Ramdas, love everyone and tell the truth."